listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Hey, I'm sitting out in the garage. Another night, another show. Want to talk to everybody out there. Halloween is very successful, and I'm in this show I'm helping out, and it is fun. It's a lot of work. It's so gratifying. But man, Monday comes and you just crash. And so here it is, Tuesday. I had a full day of rest, and I thought I should sit down. The family's gone to sleep. They painted pumpkins and had a whole night. I'll just go and talk mellow on the show. We'll just talk movies for a little bit. It'll be fun. We'll get together. We'll have a few laughs. Hey, do me a favor. Go check out HorrorBuzz.com. That is my friend Norman's site for all things horror movies. He's a real big supporter of the horror community. And I've said many times in the show that people who like horror movies are the greatest people ever. They're the friendliest, the nicest. They just like movies where people get chopped up. It's a weird juxtaposition, but it's fun. But if you go to horrorbuzz.com/killer-vote, he's put up some shirts that are election themed, but feature horror icons, and they're really cool, and they're not ones you'd expect. So go check them out. If there's a little thing on the bottom where you can put a note when you're purchasing a shirt, just put 91 reasons. That way, Norman knows that somehow the 5 people that listen to this show bought a shirt from him. If you don't have the scratch to buy a shirt, that's cool too. Just check out his site, HorrorBuzz.com. Really cool site. Really cool people run it. Norman's a good guy. I've known him forever at this point. Cool guy, cool site, cool stuff, cool shirts. Are we cool? We are cool. Hey, that might be the first commercial I've done on the show. In 6 years, first commercial. Have I done commercials before? I've mentioned stuff and I've talked about people, but I don't know if I've ever said go. Not that Norman's supporting the show, other than he likes it and tells people about it when he can. So it's all good. We're like I said, we're all in this together. So we're just going to talk about things and support each other in this ridiculous pandemic that we're in and can't get out of. If you're here in California, you can't get out. There's no out. The governor refuses to open theme parks, so Knott's can't open, Disneyland can't open, Universal Studios, Magic Mountain, Great America, you name it, they can't open. We had a summer without water slides. Bill and Ted would have been pissed had they been around. Most non-heinous, non-triumphant. So anyways, Rachel told me that I should make a quick episode because I look exhausted, and she's probably right. She sees me in ways I don't see myself. So I'm going to try to make it short, but we'll end up going 40 minutes. I don't know how to do any other kind of show, but you never know. Well, why don't you just get to it, Jeff? I will. There'll always stand you're going to get to it. I'm going to get to it, Berg. I am going to get to it. Please, let me do this. Oh, yeah, you go ahead, Jeff, and do your podcast. Thank you, Don. Can I finish? Thank you. All right, so we're talking this week about movies with big plot holes. And a plot hole is different than a mistake. Movies are allowed to make mistakes. They just are. It's okay to make a mistake. Sometimes they just happen. Sometimes people aren't paying attention, or they get in the editing room and they miss the shot and they have to fix it, and mistakes happen. I know, modern day, one of the big ones is George Lucas got into the editing bay to put Revenge of the Sith together, and he didn't have the shot of Obi-Wan picking up Anakin's lightsaber, the one he will eventually give to Luke. He had to go back and refilm it. Just didn't have it. You can imagine how many people worked on Revenge of the Sith and storyboarded it and scripted and continuity and everything involved, and they just didn't get it. Nobody got the shots. George Lucas didn't get it. Second unit didn't get it. I probably had third and fourth unit didn't get it, and they had to go and fix it. That's a mistake. When movie characters tell you they're in some place, and then, like in Die Hard 2, he's supposed to be at a Dulles airport, and when he picks up the phone, it's clear he's not in Dulles Airport. The phone is from Atlantic Bell, which is East Coast, not middle of America. So those are mistakes, and you know what? They happen. What are you going to do? Raiders of the Lost Ark, a fly goes in Belloc's mouth when Indy is threatening the Ark with the bazooka. Those are mistakes. It's okay to make a mistake. It happens to the best of us. Raiders of the Lost Ark has mistakes, but it's still one of the finest movies ever made. Yeah, a rock bounces if you look at the shadow. Who cares? In the original version, a snake pops up and you can see its reflection in the glass. Who cares? Doesn't take away from the greatness of that movie. We're talking plot holes. Movies where something is so glaring that it undoes the movie. And we see it all the time in big movies. Okay, let's go through some of them. Now, the way to address this, if you recognize it, is in Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me. Because he says, hey, Basil, if I go back in the past, I meet myself, oh my God, I've gone cross-eyed. And he goes, Austin, you shouldn't worry about that. Just have a good time. And then both of them look at the camera and go, and that goes for you guys as well. That's a great moment. It breaks the fourth wall. It tells the audience, we're going to mess around with time travel, but you should not take it seriously. We're having a goof. I totally respect that. You know, how much do I respect it? Well, I named my middle kid Austin, so I respect it a lot. I was a big fan of those movies. The first two, not the third one as much. And then if they make a fourth one, God help us. Imagine what the digital makeovers will look like in that. Okay, so one of the big ones in modern day is Ocean's 11. And I mean, we're talking about a movie almost 20 years old, but Ocean's 11 is a great movie. It's so good, in fact, and entertaining that it has a huge glaring plot pothole. Yeah, pothole in the street, Jeff. George Clooney hits it on the way to the casino. No, it has such a big plot hole. The movie is so good that a massive plot hole does not detract from the movie. Here's what I'm talking about. The plan to steal from the casino is so thought out and so well done that when they walk away from the Bellagio fountains with the money, you're just applauding, and you never stop to think that George Clooney, Matt Damon, and the Asian acrobat never take pornographic flyers into the vault. Because later in the movie, the other guys in the team are dressed as SWAT members, and they carry the money out of the vault in giant bags and put it in a truck, and the switcheroo is made. And when the authorities open the SWAT truck that's remote control, the bags are filled with pornographic flyers, which is a funny move because we've all been to Vegas and the guy slaps his hand and tries to hand you filth, and you either take it and go, woo, or you politely decline, or you just keep walking. But in the movie, there's never any moment where they can take it into the vault. It's just a plot hole. It just is a thing that doesn't make sense. But again, it's a good movie, very well done. Steven Soderbergh directed it. That you don't dwell on it. But when the director was asked about it in an interview, he said, yeah, it's a plot hole. But we figured people were having such a good time, they wouldn't recognize it. And you know what? He's right. It took me years to figure out, what is wrong with this plan? Why doesn't it feel like it should work? Well, it shouldn't, because they never take the flyers into the vault. Here's another one. This is not a plot hole, but it's not a mistake. It's just simply a weird thing about the movie. And we're going to go on sacred turf here. In Back to the Future 2, according to the time travel laws set down in Back to the Future, once you leave a time frame, you are not in that time frame. So when Marty and Jennifer get into the DeLorean at the beginning of the movie, and they go to 2015, they can't meet themselves because they would be going to a 2015 from a 1985 where they ceased to exist. They vanished. They went missing. You know, Biff came out with his matchbooks and went, a flying DeLorean. And then he went, where'd Marty and Jennifer go? The truck's still here. Oh, maybe they went for a walk. Well, then they didn't come back from that walk for a day, a week, a month, a year, 7 years, and they were declared legally dead. So you can't go to the future and meet yourself. You can go to the past and meet yourself because you were already there. But if you go to the future from a certain point, you're advancing from the point of your departure. So you can't meet yourself. Now I've gone cross-eyed. But you see, this is where time travel gets wonky. And Bob Gale admitted in an interview, yeah, it's a plot hole. But you can't have him go to the future and not meet the McFlys in the future. I totally get it. And you know what? Again, I'm such a fan of these movies that it never even occurred to me till later that, like, you can't go to the future and see your older self because you didn't, even if your intention is you're going to go back and reset, right? Because in the Sixth Key series, I use the Bill and Ted time travel theory that if you say you're going to do something in the future, it will happen in the present. You know, when he goes, remember a trash can, and like, he's the one who all along had his dad's keys to get them out of jail. So that's Bill and Ted's time travel. Back to the Future doesn't work like that. Because if, according to those rules, Marty's future in the first movie would not be in jeopardy because, according to the timeline, he was always going to set it right. If that doesn't make sense, I'm talking in circles, I know. But that's not how time travel works in those movies. So you can't leave and go meet yourself. It doesn't work like that. We forgive it because it's a good movie. How about District 9? You ever see District 9? About the aliens who come to Earth and become like homeless guys and eat cat food? In the film, our main character gets tainted by one of the aliens and becomes one of the aliens. And he has to go to his headquarters to try to set things right before he fully transforms. Well, in the movie, they're hunting these aliens down because the movie's called District 9. Because that's where the aliens are only allowed to reside. They're not allowed to leave the area, and it's very totalitarian. They're very mean to them. The guy who transforms into one, he's doing that because he's learning a lesson about life and how you should really treat people. And he doesn't figure it out till the end. Like, I should be nicer to these aliens. To these, they're called squids or something. I'm not really sure. It's been a while since I've seen it. But I do know that when he decides to go to headquarters, he just goes there. He's just there. And he either goes on a truck or for one of the journeys. It's either the journey to or the journey back. They simply don't show it. They don't need to show it. It's not part of the plot. You don't need 20 minutes of him dodging people to get there. I get all that. But according to the rules of the universe, they're prawns. Everybody would know the prawns on sight. You know, he'd have to dress up like the Thing and put on a trench coat and glasses and a hat and try to be inconspicuous. But it's a weird moment in the movie. And it is one of those parts where it is jarring because you're like, oh, but I thought you said that, oh, never mind, the movie's moving on. Oh, it's good now. Along those same lines, the family and I sat through, sometimes I buy movies on a dare. You know, sometimes I dare myself to buy a terrible movie. And I had heard about this movie with Kevin Spacey called 9 Lives. Now, I don't think anybody in the modern world has fallen as far as Kevin Spacey has. He has 2 Oscars, ladies and gentlemen. 2 Oscars. He has an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for The Usual Suspects and Best Actor for American Beauty. Like, he is lauded in Hollywood. And when those allegations came out, he just fell from grace. And he went from being an A-lister in prestige movies to a movie called 9 Lives about a man that gets turned into a cat because he's in a coma. This movie's directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. Barry Sonnenfeld directed The Addams Family, Men in Black, Get Shorty. This is an A-lister director. And this movie is so incredibly bad that you almost enjoy it for how bad it is. Christopher Walken's in it. Some other people that I don't remember. But it's about a guy who gets turned into a cat. And you think, like, the movie's then going to be like, he learns this lesson by having to be a cat. But instead, the cat has to expose the guy who killed him or put him in a coma. I mean, it's a very strange movie. It's borderline offensive. It's so stupid. It's worth watching if you're a movie fan, just to see, like, a guy with 2 Oscars suddenly as the voice of a talking cat. But in the movie, he goes to great lengths to stow away to get to his office building. And there's a lot of, dare I say, cat and mouse, as he's getting there. And when he gets there, he figures out what he has to do to get changed back. He has to convince his daughter, and he has to make a new relationship with his daughter. All the lessons you learn in a crappy movie like this. And then he's got to get back to the apartment. But in a District 9 move, he's just back at the apartment. I actually sat up during this movie and went, how the F did he get back to the apartment? They made such a big deal moment out of him getting to the building that he just gets back to the apartment. It's not part of the story. And then, I'm going to spoil this movie, so if you're going to watch this piece of crap, pause now and go watch it, but I wouldn't recommend it. The only way he's going to get out of the cat and back into his body is the cat has to die. So they actually kill the cat in the movie. It's very strange. It features some of the worst CGI sets you've ever seen in a movie. He's building the world's tallest building. That's the plot of the movie. Like, he's playing like a tycoon who has to build the tallest skyscraper. And the skyscraper in the movie looks like something out of one of the Power Rangers movies. It's the worst looking CGI. It looks like a video game. And you just can't believe stars and directors of this caliber are making this movie. It's the kind of movie that if you met them and you tried to talk about it, they would just walk away. You know, every celebrity has that movie that they won't talk about, that they're like, I can't believe I made that movie. You know, some of them are proud of him. Like, I don't think Dan Aykroyd is ashamed of any movie he's made, from Nothing But Trouble to My Stepmother is an Alien. Like, he's made some turkeys, but I would doubt I don't think he even cares. They're all great in his eyes. But I think if you said to Kevin Spacey, I loved you in 9 Lives, he would just turn and walk away. You know, that's his Leonard Part 6. Leonard Part 6 is a movie that Bill Cosby made that was so bad, he tried to buy it from the studio so it would never get released. And the studio released it, and it made 10 cents at the box office, showed up on home video, and bewildered everybody because there's no parts 1 through 5. And when people rent it, they'd go, I've never heard of this movie series. And I'm like, it's not a movie series. That's supposed to be a joke. And they'd go, well, it's not funny. I go, no, it's not funny. And here's a refund. But 9 Lives is Kevin Spacey's The Day the Clown Cried. That's the movie Jerry Lewis made and bought and shelved about a clown who entertains children in a Holocaust concentration camp. That's a real movie. No one's seen it but like a handful of people. You know, some people have said it's not as bad as you think it is, but I bet it's worse. Let's talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark real quick. Raiders of the Lost Ark does not have plot holes. It has a couple of mistakes here and there. The bouncing rock, the glass, which I think they probably fixed in the new digital versions. But there is a theory about Raiders of the Lost Ark that is interesting, that kind of is a plot hole. And that's that Indiana Jones has no bearing on the plot of the movie. That if Indiana Jones had just stayed home, nothing would have happened. Right? So, he doesn't get to keep the fertility idol at the beginning. So, whether he went in and had that great adventure, it doesn't matter because he doesn't have it. Belloc takes it. You never... Like, if Raiders of the Lost Ark was made today, it wouldn't end with the Ark going into that warehouse. Because modern day movies aren't that brave. They would never just leave the audience hanging, even though, like, I left the theater of Raiders of the Lost Ark floating. It was so good. Raiders of the Lost Ark is arguably one of the finest movies ever made. It's certainly, Schindler's List notwithstanding, Steven Spielberg's most accomplished movie. He made Jaws, Raiders, and Schindler's. He made a lot of other good movies, great movies. I mean, even E.T. sneaks in there, but I think Raiders and Jaws are better than E.T. You want to fight me on it? Let's fight. But in the context of Raiders of the Lost Ark, he doesn't get the fertility idol. Then he gets this call from the government that the Nazis are trying to find, the Ark of the Covenant in the Well of the Souls. And he goes on this adventure and he gets the headpiece to the Staff of Ra, which, if he hadn't shown up that night in Nepal, the Nazis would have gotten it. They would have gotten it. So their stick would have been the right height, and they probably would have found the Ark. Now, Indy gets there first because the Nazis' stick is the wrong height. They're digging in the wrong place. So Indy gets the Ark. There's a big chase. It's on a boat. Captain Katanga. And then the Nazis get it. And he's powerless to do anything. The Nazis open it, and they're all sucked into it. The lid closes, and nobody gets it because it goes in a warehouse. Now, if Indy stays home, if he doesn't leave his house, well, first, Marion is in danger. She probably gets killed. Tote is not a nice guy. He's not taken in by her charms the way Belloc is. So, Indy doesn't show up in Nepal. The Nazis kill Marion. They get the headpiece to the Staff of Ra. They take it back to Tanis. They find the map room. They find the Well of the Souls. They get the Ark. They take it to that U-boat fortress. And they have the ceremony, and they open it. And they all get sucked in. And the Ark lid falls, and nobody knows nothing. So the only difference is that the Ark is on an island with nobody there, or the Ark is in a warehouse if Indy intrudes on it. So that's an interesting theory that I had never thought of until it showed up a few years ago. It skims a plot hole edge. Like, it might be a plot hole if Indy just stays out of it. But, like, I'm on this Facebook page called Back to the Future Forever. And these people pontificate all day about what if. And some of them are maddening. And all I write on their posts is, sometimes I watch the movie. Because I just watch the movie. How about you just enjoy that somebody worked months, maybe even a year or longer on this thing, and now you get to enjoy it whenever you can. And let's not pull it apart. Now, I'm not pulling Raiders apart because I began this diatribe by praising it above all praises. Right? But I wouldn't just sit and rip these movies apart. You know, even movies with plot holes, I enjoy. I love watching movies. I always have. Movies, like I've said it a million times in this show, movies have always been my friend. I love hanging out with movies that I like. It's weird to get old, and the movies are still the same. I feel like Matthew McConaughey. I get older, and the movies stay the same age. Only he's talking about chicks in Dazed and Confused, and I'm talking about the movies. You know, movies for me might have taken a nosedive the day they closed the doors to Blockbuster Video, but instead I just started hoarding them. You know, I have stacks of VHS, I now have stacks of Beta, and I have shelves of DVDs. So I don't depend on streaming services to get my movies. My friend Hindle helps me out when I can't find an obscure movie. He's very good about that. He's so quick and he's so talented about that. But the majority of my movie watching is done on disc because you can trust him. I own that movie. It's mine. It's on the shelf. Along those lines, man, I have found so many cool movies lately. People are purging their DVDs to the thrift stores. And I am right there and I am gobbling them up. TV show sets, deluxe movie sets, out-of-print movies. I just found a DVD set that I didn't even know existed. I paid $2.99 for it. Now, I had a coupon. So it was $2.60. And it's 4-disc set of the Faces of Death. Do you remember the Faces of Death? I was trying to explain. My kids had no concept of this, and they won't watch it. And I actually haven't watched it yet, because these are the kind of things you want to watch with nobody around, because they're disturbing, right? But I remember in the 86, 87, that the first Faces of Death tape came out, and most video stores wouldn't stock it. So you had to drive around town. You know, you have to go to the Video Guild, Steve's Video, Multi-Video, Video Plus, you know, and you'd look for Faces of Death. They had to be the store that bought it, stocked it, and it had to be in stock, because this one was checked out all the time, because it was an hour-long tape of just people dying and animals dying. I mean, this was disturbing, weird stuff. Like a guy being electrocuted, a guy on the news getting eaten by an alligator. I think there's one where his parachute doesn't open on camera. The most famous one is this poor monkey that gets locked in a table, and they smack it with hammers until they can eat his brains. Everybody remembers the monkey moment, and it's something you don't forget. And I'm like, here's the thing. I bought it because it's very valuable. It's worth about $70. But I'm like, I probably should sell it, because I just don't know if I can watch it. It's weird, because I don't have any good memories of the Faces of Death. I simply have oh yeah, I remember that. I showed it to my friend Alan. He was like, oh my God, yes, Faces of Death. He looked at me and he goes, the monkey, right? And I'm like, yeah, man. That poor monkey. Oh my God, the poor monkey. I don't know if I can watch that poor monkey. It haunts you forever, you see it. But it was weird to pick it up and oh my God, because this is hard to find. Really hard to find. All right, let's get back to some plot holes here. One of the most infamous ones I watched was the remake of the Stepford Wives. This is one of those movies nobody even remembers they made. This stars Matthew Broderick, Nicole Kidman. It was directed by Frank Oz. Another one with a pedigree. All these people involved are uber talented. They've all made really good movies in their past. But for some reason, and I have to assume for Stepford Wives, it was studio interference. Because Stepford Wives is a mess. And the plot hole is that, if you know the plot of the Stepford Wives, it was a 60s movie about a guy and his wife who moved to these weird suburbs where everybody's life is perfect. The wives are all perfect. And it turns out they're robots. The men have been replacing their wives with robots because the robots are perfect. It's a dark movie. Well, in the remake, they weren't willing to take that leap. I don't know why. But in the movie, which is played sillier than the original, they show Matthew Broderick the robot double of Nicole Kidman they're going to replace her with. And he ends up with her in a room looking at the robot. That's a plot of the movie. And then later in the movie, they're not robots. They've been augmented with robotics. Because one of the wives turns into a lawnmower. And one of the wives, her stomach is an ATM. It's a really dumb movie. And it's even dumber with this sudden veer left turn where the plot they told you the movie was, they all of a sudden well, that's not the plot anymore. No, you said it. You said it was the plot of the movie. I didn't say it was the plot of the movie. Did I just fall asleep? Because it's as jarring as From Dusk Till Dawn, where From Dusk Till Dawn for the first half hour is this crime movie. The Gecko brothers have taken a family hostage, and they're driving them to Mexico. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's about vampires. That's a cool twist. That's a jarring switch in plot. But for some reason, it works in that movie. It really does. It's very stylistic, and it works. Stepford Wives is just a mess, because they tell you one thing, and then they just go ahead and do another, and you're like, I'm not that stupid, guys. All right, we'll do a couple of Tom Hanks here. Tom Hanks generally makes really quality movies. You know, he made some clunkers in the beginning. I remember sitting through Mazes and Monsters. But then I really liked Bachelor Party. You know, Bachelor Party. I even enjoyed Man with One Red Shoe. Nothing in Common. And then we have that big run of, I really love The Burbs. Man, The Burbs is one of my favorite guilty pleasures. Dig that movie. Joe Dante. Tom Hanks, Carrie Fisher. Great movie. Really dark comedy. Bruce Dern's in it. Love Bruce Dern. And then he did Turner and Hooch. You know, and then he's looking for Academy Awards. We get Big in a row. Wow, somebody's racing. We get Big, Philadelphia, Toy Story, Forrest Gump. Like, boom, boom, boom. He's turning in these big performances. But even these movies have some issues. Now, Big is a pretty flawless movie. You know, directed by Penny Marshall, written by Gary Ross. Tom Hanks was nominated Best Actor because he's fantastic as Josh Baskin. But there is a weird part of the movie because they show his loft, and they show that he's bought arcade games to put in his loft. So when he puts in the request for the Zoltar machine, they're leading him down a path that he's going to buy the machine, right? And put it in his house. But that's not the plot. Instead, he ends up taking Elizabeth Perkins to the carnival and making the wish right then and there. Now, it's a touching ending to a fantastic movie. But you are like, you know, not you, me, because I'm an idiot. Because I analyze movies way too much. I'm like, why doesn't he just buy the machine? If he knows it grants wishes. Like, I know Josh is pure. I mean, that's part of the movie is that he's so pure that he wouldn't have, like, I should just buy this machine. It's a genie in a bottle. I'm going to take it home and become a gazillion. That's not the plot of the movie. I totally get that. But it is weird that they make a point of showing his arcade games, and there's never any thought of him buying the Zoltar machine. And maybe they did. Maybe the original draft, he bought the machine, and he ends up back home with it on a truck. I don't know. You know, sometimes movies go through a process. You know, the original ending of Pretty Woman was he dumps her back on the street and leaves her. And Gary Marshall's like, no, we're making a movie about a hooker with a heart of gold. They have to get together at the end. And he was right, because the movie made $1 billion and turned Julia Roberts into a mega star. But the original movie, written by, I believe, J.F. Lawton, who wrote Under Siege. He did the first draft that was never used for the Fart Man movie with Howard Stern. But the original movie is called 3,000 because that's how much he pays for the weekend. And or maybe it's 5,000, 3,000. But the name of the movie is how much he pays, and it's a dark fairy tale where the princess doesn't get her wish. And Gary Marshall's not going to make that kind of movie. And Gary Marshall's a strange dude, man. He has this. He's passed away, sadly. But his reputation was like family, wholesome entertainment. Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, Joni Loves Chachi. He directed, did he direct Nothing in Common? He might have. Gary Marshall directed, The Flamingo Kid. But then he had a weird run. I've talked on the show, Happy Days is really dirty. But this is the guy who directed Pretty Woman, which is about a prostitute. And he directed a movie that is really hard to find. I actually had a copy, and I sold it because I'm stupid. I should rebuy it. But, when you find it for $2, it's hard to go on eBay and pay $20, $25. He directed Exit to Eden, which is the Anne Rice S&M movie about a guy who goes to an island where everybody's into S&M, and he falls in love with Dana Delaney and has this affair with her. Gary Marshall directed that, and Anne Rice signed off on it, even though it has, we're circled back, Dan Aykroyd's in it. Dan Aykroyd's in leather in it, and they make all these comments about the size of his wang. And he's paired with a leather-clad Rosie O'Donnell. This is a strange, strange movie. Paul Mercurio, Hector Elizondo, directed by Gary Marshall. What a weird dude, man. He's known, like, in League of Their Own, he's the guy who owns the team. He's this real nice, wholesome guy. Sells gum, makes movies. Directed The Princess Diaries. But also made a couple of movies about hardcore sex, but done really soft. That's an interesting filmography. I never thought of it like that. All right, our second Tom Hanks movie is Forrest Gump. Won Best Picture. It's directed by Robert Zemeckis. It doesn't have any plot holes per se, but it does have a big question mark at the end. And it's fairly obvious in the movie that Jenny, because of her drug use and promiscuity in the late 70s, early 80s, that she dies of AIDS. Jenny has AIDS. She even says the doctors don't know what I have. She's talking about AIDS. Now, we're not ever told if her and Forrest had sex after they get together at the end. I would assume they did. But, hopefully she didn't give Forrest AIDS, is what I'm saying. Because it's a sexually transmitted disease. That's not the movie they were making, and certainly not the movie they were making in that time frame. Because, Tom Hanks is coming off of Philadelphia, or he's going into, no, it was Philadelphia, Forrest Gump, and then Toy Story. So AIDS is not a joke. People are dying. It's a horrific disease. But it's interesting that that's the weird subplot that's not talked about. Now, remember, everybody who talks to Forrest Gump gets killed. Bubba gets killed. JFK gets killed. People are getting shot. There's a cutscene where he meets Martin Luther King. Weird stuff going on. Forrest Gump's a weird... I love the movie. Josie loves the movie too. But it does... Like, I've probably seen Forrest Gump 25, 30 times. It does have some overtones. Lieutenant Dan loses his legs. Bubba dies. Jenny dies. That's an interesting, talking point on that film. We're going to end on a couple of big ones here. Steven Spielberg returns with Jurassic Park: The Lost World. This is the sequel. This is the bizarre sequel to Jurassic Park. Has a great sequence where the two T-Rexes are pushing the RV over the cliff. That's a great sequence. But it also has a sequence where a Tyrannosaurus Rex wants to get its baby back, so it rampages through San Diego. Now, that's fine if that's the movie you want to make, and it is the movie they want to make. And it's got a stupid scene where Asian men are pointing at it like they're in a Godzilla movie. It's really jarring. It's way below what Spielberg is normally capable of delivering. I think he's even gone on record saying, like, he's not proud of Lost World in any way because it's a mess. But, yeah, part of the reason of that is David Koepp, who wrote it. Like, he's written some schlock. He's written some good stuff, but he's also written some schlock, and Lost World's way at the top of his schlock list. They're just trying to come up with any reason that they have dinosaurs in this movie. But when the ship comes to San Diego, it crashes because somehow the Tyrannosaurus Rex has broken out of the cargo hold, eaten every member of the crew, including the guy manning the wheel. He's eaten every part of the guy except the guy's hand, which is still on the wheel. Now, it's in the command center of the ship, so I don't know how the T-Rex got him in there, ate the guy, and got out without destroying it. The T-Rex also managed, after the rampage, to lock itself back into the cargo hold. I noticed this plot hole, this ridiculousness on the first viewing. I said, this is so stupid. And this is coming after the remake of Godzilla, where there's a scene at the end where they're in Madison Square Gardens, and Godzilla has laid eggs everywhere, and the eggs are hatching into, like, velociraptor kind of monsters. And Godzilla has brought fish to feed them, but it's taken a while, and Godzilla's vanished. They don't know where he went. But when Matthew Broderick comes upon the fish, they're still flopping. Like, how long does a fish flop when it's out of the water? A minute? 30 seconds? Pretty soon the fish just lays there and gasps. It's not a pretty sight, but if you're fishing like I have, you've seen it. They don't flop for an hour. So big dinosaur movies have big problems. Lost World's a mess. I would never watch that movie again. That is a terrible movie. What a joke. Now, I would buy that RV playset, because I've had that RV playset probably 4 times, and each time I've sold it for a lot of money. If I got it now, I would just keep it. But they don't show up very often. The last one I had was in the box. How dumb am I? Okay, let's go out on a big one. This is a flawless movie, except for one reason. I love The Matrix. I've gone on record as saying I love The Matrix. I think it's fantastic. When I saw it in the theater opening weekend, I was blown away at that plot twist. I did not see it coming. When Neo wakes up in that pod, and when Morpheus finally explains what's going on, I'm like, I had no idea this was going to happen. This is a roller coaster of a movie. It is stellar. The bullet time, the colors, the look, the feel. It was a lot like the movie I enjoyed, Dark City, which turns out they filmed on the same sets months apart. Dark City is almost, the same exact plot as The Matrix, but instead of a computer program, it's about aliens. But if you haven't seen Dark City is fantastic. Directed by Alex Proyas, starring Rufus Sewell and Kiefer Sutherland, and, of course, Jennifer Connelly. Great movie. Also features Richard O'Brien from Rocky Horror Picture Show. But The Matrix, for all its flawlessness, has an issue, and I think they were going to explain it in what eventually became a deleted scene. But again, we're talking about a movie so entertaining that when they have a plot hole like this, you just don't notice until you've seen the movie a few times. And I'm talking about the scene where Cypher, played by Joe Pantoliano from, The Goonies and Bound and The Sopranos and you name it, he is talking to the agent and having dinner. It's a great scene where he goes, I know this steak isn't real. I know it's a program, and I'm programmed to think that it's juicy. And he goes, I don't care. I want to go back in. I don't want to remember anything. I want to be somebody important, like a movie star. But as great as that scene is, it does beg the question, how is he doing it? Because one of the plot points of The Matrix is that when they go from the real world into The Matrix, they have an operator, a handler. Tank and the other guy are watching them. They're looking at the code and reading the code to see what they're doing. That part of the plot at the end is Neo is jacked in the Matrix and can't be unjacked. But Cypher is turning them off and killing them in the Matrix and in real life. Trinity dies, and Neo brings her back to life because he's the chosen one. Now, all that's fantastic, except Cypher, according to the plot of the movie, cannot jack himself into the Matrix and then get out of it. He can't plug in and plug out at whim, or everybody would have been doing that the whole movie. If you can unplug yourself from the Matrix, Neo would have done it and fought Cypher in the real world, but have punched him in the face. But instead, Cypher makes a point of touching Trinity and laughing at Neo because they're, in the real world, helpless because their consciousness is in the Matrix. Am I making sense? So that's a weird moment in the movie. And it does, once you see it, like, boom, And you know what? Who cares? The movie's so good. Who cares? I don't care. Do you care? Because I don't care. These are plot holes that you're able to overlook. Plot holes like, if Harry Potter has a time turner, why would he go back a day? Why wouldn't he go back and stop Voldemort from killing his parents? Why wouldn't anybody use a time turner to undo past mistakes? I know that's the plot of The Cursed Child, but it's interesting. You got this magic, but you can't do certain things. It's a little weird. Now, I'm talking about the most successful film franchise of all time. Harry Potter, it's either Harry Potter or James Bond. But Some of them are forgiven. Matrix is forgiven because it's so good. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the remake. Like, how are they going to add to the Matrix mythology? And let's not forget, Neo died at the end of the third movie. He was born on a cross like Christ and died. And humanity trudged on in the Matrix with some sort of truce. I don't know. The Matrix, as great as those movies are, they do fall apart at the end. They just fall apart. There's too much story to tell. So maybe they need another one. Did I miss any, folks? Are there some you want to tell me about? Are there plot holes you're like, oh, dude, you missed the big one? Tell me on Facebook or write me a message. Let me know. Also, remember, check out horrorbuzz.com and those cool Killer Vote t-shirts. They're really unique. And Norman's done a great job. And I know everybody's hurting because there's no new horror movies, very few Halloween events to go to, and we got to support each other as best we can because we're all we've got. We are all in this together. I've said that from the start on this show, and it's never been more important than it is now. So thank you to all my Patreon supporters. Your support means the world. I know I say it every month, but oh my God, do I mean it. If you get in a situation where you cannot support the show anymore, I get it. You can turn it off, and I thank you for every penny you've put in this show. I really do. But it's all good. We're all, like I said, we're all doing our best, man. I am going to end this show now and go do all my eBay shipping so I can take it to the post office tomorrow because I am, selling on eBay to try to get through this weirdness. Again, everybody take care. Be safe. Watch some crappy movies like I am. I just bought a stack today. I can't wait to sit and relax. I've been watching, like I said, Star Trek The Next Generation. I got to an episode called Lower Decks, which is about the lower crewmen and how they perceive the senior staff, the senior officers on the ship. I was dreading this one. I was actually going to skip over it. Boy, am I stupid. This was one of the best episodes of the whole series. It had weight, it had good characters, it had consequences, it had callbacks, and it was really well written. Ronald D. Moore has done some amazing science fiction work. This is the guy who really worked his butt off on Next Gen and then was the main guy behind the reboot of Battlestar Galactica. Very talented guy. Doesn't need me to tell him that. Everybody's lauded him for years. So, but hey, I'm enjoying your work, dude. I'm going back in time and enjoying your work. So, take care, everybody. I am Jeff, and this is 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
But whatever it is, it's got to get by us. Right. Go get her, Ray.